So today we're lucky enough of having Firmiano Ribeiro. He is the executive director of the Miami FC Academy. Firmiano, welcome.
Mariano, it's a pleasure to be here. We've been talking about coming on here for a while, so I'm excited to have this conversation with you today.
Es un placer. Firmiano, tell us a little bit about yourself, about how much time have you been in Miami FC?
So I've been in Miami FC for 3.5 years, almost 4 years now. It's been a great project so far. A lot of changes in the past couple of years that we've had to adapt to, but we've also seen a lot of success in that time.
So we want to get to know you a little bit better. You're from Brazil,
Correct.
Right? What part?
I'm from Bahia, a city called Barreiras, in the central part of Bahia, closer actually to Brasilia, which is the capital.
Nice. And when did you move here to the US?
So I was 10 years old. I originally moved to a city called Fall River, Massachusetts, near Boston. So I grew up there with my mom and my stepfather. The rest of my family stayed in Brazil, and then I bounced back and forth a little bit between, in the summers, go visit my dad, and then for the school year, I'd be with my mom up in the Boston area.
And where actually did you get to love soccer?
Started in Brazil, for sure. I was privileged to grow up in a generation where I saw a lot of stars, a lot of football stars like Ronaldinho, Roberto Carlos, Cafu, Kaká, I think kids that are born 2000 and later didn't really get to enjoy those players as much. But those were the guys that I think laid the foundation for me. And in my neighborhood, there was a small pitch in the middle of the neighborhood, which was really an abandoned lot that we used to play almost every day. And that's where my love for the game came from.
Nice. So, and you started playing soccer in Brazil,
Correct.
But you moved when you were 10?
Yep.
How did you see the games of Brazil and of your favorite players there?
It was very different, right? Because at that time in Brazil, I never put a uniform on. I had never played on a team. So it was only street soccer, right? Like I mentioned,
Nice.
There was an abandoned lot, in the middle of the neighborhood where we used to go and play all the time. So that's really where I played. And then when I came to the U.S., that didn't really exist. So my mom just reached out to a couple of colleagues in Fall River, where I grew up. There's a big Portuguese community. So she reached out to a couple of colleagues from work, and they got me on the team. And it was an adaptation, because now I was listening to instruction as opposed to just playing freely. So, and I was playing indoor as well in the winter. So it was something that I was not used to, but I enjoyed it. It was different, and it was great.
What position did you play?
So when I first moved here, I used to play right back.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was
You were tall?
I was not that tall when I first moved here. I really grew when I was 16 years old. But I played right back, and then from there I started shifting a little bit more to the central area. As I got a little bit bigger, they asked me to play a little bit more as a center back or as a holding midfielder as well.
I think you're a great example of what happens here in Florida. The people from all around the world come and play soccer here. You're bringing your Brazilian roots.
Right.
How would you say your Brazilian roots compare to how football is played here in the U.S.?
I think the football in the U.S. has evolved a lot over the last 15, 20 years, since 2008 really, where it got a lot more structure with the developmental academy. But I think what South Americans in particular bring to South Florida and everywhere in the U.S. is that flair, that confidence, the creativity, right? That I think that sometimes other countries can lack. So I think here in South Florida, you see a lot of it with the young kids that have that, play with that chip on their shoulder, or kids that have that creativity, that want to try different things, and I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's going to contribute to the U.S. soccer's long-term success.
So, and you think there's been some kind of evolution through the past 5-10 years up here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. It's hard, right? Because I think people are always judging the progress in U.S. soccer by how the national team does, and the national team hasn't seen as much success as I think people would have hoped for. But in terms of structure, in terms of quality of coaches, In terms of competition, I think it has evolved tremendously, and standards overall. Now in competitions like Generation Adidas, where you see some MLS academies competing with some of the top academies across the world, from the likes of Flamengo to Manchester United, and you see them beating these academies. So I think that never would have happened 5-10 years ago, and I think we're finally at a youth level starting to close that gap with the rest of the world.
Incredible. And you think that after all this time, you think this will have some repercussion in the higher level in the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the U.S. national team, I think so, definitely. I would say that you'll continue to see the U.S. national team grow and reach higher levels. I think the MLS has always made a lot of progress as well, right? I think USL has made a lot of progress, and I think we'll continue to see that progress as long as we're able to retain the top players in the U.S. at least for a little while. I think eventually you want them to go to Europe so they are challenged a little bit more. But I think if they stay and start their careers here, then I think that you'll see the U.S. Or the domestic leagues start to make a lot of progress.
So now we're going to get into the Miami FC kind of section. So the first question that we have for you is, what is Miami FC Academy's culture?
So we try to create a culture where players are able to express themselves, right? We try to mold or to fit into the DNA of what South Florida is, right? That Latin culture. But we also try to instill professionalism on these players so they can they can be able to grow into a professional environment later in their careers. But we definitely do not take away their creativity, and we have values of respect, commitment, and professionalism that we try to really, like I said, instill in the players and make sure that they carry that for the rest of their lives.
Man, the academy plays a key role in the shaping of the young individuals. How many souls are you guys now covering? How many players?
So roughly we have in-house, so we have different programs around the community, but in-house right now we have around 300 players in the academy.
Man, that's an important role.
Yeah.
That's big. And which one is your biggest rivalry?
Our biggest rivalry? Well, we're definitely developing rivalries as we go on. I think with professional clubs as well, new professional clubs coming into the area like Fort Lauderdale. Actually, next week we're going to play Inter Miami for the first time in history. So it's at the academy level, right? So it'll be Inter Miami against Miami FC at the youth level for the first time in history. So it'll be a cool experience, I think, for our players, and cool to compete and to measure up. We know that Inter Miami has done a fantastic job of producing players over the past couple of years, and we want to see where we are as far as that goes. And we know we still have a long way to go, but we've also been able to progress tremendously in the past 2-3 years.
Nice. And help me understand a little bit how your week goes, because 300 kids, we're talking about how many teams?
For the younger kids, we have roughly, I want to say 6 teams.
6 teams, man. So soccer from Monday to Sunday? Any relaxing day?
Yeah, it would be like that. I mean, now with the new facility, I think we'll have a little bit more flexibility to do that. But a lot of times we depend on the facility access. But as the kids here are, they're obsessed with football. So if we have training Monday through Thursday, on Fridays they're looking for futsal, on Saturdays they're playing games, and then on Sunday, when we wish they would recover, they're probably playing with their friends at a local park.
Nice. But also that's something that you guys want to
absolutely
have, right?
Absolutely. We want that culture. We want kids who have that passion for the game as well.
So, and help me understand a little bit, what's the relationship with the first team? How do you guys manage that kind of relationship? I'm sure the kids look upon the first team and they see the games. What's happening there? So
that was one of the first goals that I put on coming into here, coming into the academy. It was that we needed to really develop a relationship there, and over time it has changed because first team staff has also changed since I first got here. But it's always been important for me and for the U20 coach as well as the rest of the academy coaches to to develop a relationship with the first team staff, so we're all on the same page. And now, this year we've had 2 coaches from the academy that are working on a regular basis with the first team. So we have Wilmer and we have Marcelo, who have been working with the first team as well. So they understand the culture that's going on in the locker room and on the field at the first team, and then they can also bring that down, and then me more on the executive and administrative side as well.
Because here in South Florida, there's not as many academies that also have a professional team. I think you're one of the small group of organizations that have this case. And you think the culture of the first team is trickling down a little bit into the rest of the organization, or it's in process, you would say?
Yeah, I would say, so we're one of 2 currently, right, with us Inter Miami, and then next year there'll be Fort Lauderdale, who are going to have a professional men's team as well. They have a women's team now, but yeah, it's in a process, right? Like I said, it's changed over time with the coaching staff, with the first team coaching staff and players changing. It also changes the coaches of the first team. And we have a new coach this year, and new coaching staff, and new leadership in the club as well. So we are in the process. It's not something that easily happens overnight, right? Like, it takes a little bit of time. So we're molding not only our coaching staff at the academy level, but also the players to try to fit in to the culture of the first team. But usually this is a process that takes, I would say, minimum 2 to 3 years,
Oof, that's quite a bit. Yeah. So help me understand a little bit this. So let's say you got un crack playing U17 or U19. Is there a possibility of this guy playing in the first team?
Yes, absolutely. So we have, the top players, and I've heard this before, but I believe that talent doesn't have age, right? And this doesn't come from me. I've heard it before, and it's something that I always carry with me. So we try to promote kids as young as 16 or even 15-year-olds in some cases to start training with the first team if they're really excelling, whether it's with the U16s, U17s, or U19s, right? And then
who asked for it? Like, the coach of the first team actually comes to
we'll speak to the coaching staff of the first team and say, hey, look, we have a player here who's really excelling. We want to introduce him to the first team environment. We want him to see what it's like to train with professionals in a professional environment, right? Of course, we need to give that player time to go in there and to adapt. We don't expect a player to go in there and be a superstar right away, do the same things that they do at the youth level. But we'll speak to the coach and the coaching staff this season and last season as well have been very open to taking on those players who we recommend to them.
Okay, I would imagine there is some kind of, it takes some time for the player to acclimatarse, I would say, to the first division. Was there any case this year?
Yes, actually, we've had total this year, we've had 7 players who signed contracts. Training, I would say we've had over 20 or 25 players from the academy train with the first team this year. But players who have signed contracts this year, we've had 7. 3 of them were returners from last season, and then we've had 4 more. One actually was just 2 weeks ago, which was Diego Melo.
Okay, so if I'm understanding right, before they can play in the first team, they need to sign a contract.
Yes, if they need to get, if they're going to get rostered with the first team, so they will sign an academy contract, which is an amateur contract, essentially. It doesn't take away their college eligibility, so they can actually go and play in college still after that, or they can sign a professional contract after that and become fully integrated with the first team. But they can play with the first team as long as they have an academy contract. So the first step is usually to introduce them to the training environment, right? Give them a little bit of time, a player that's excelling with the first team. And if he's adapting well, if everything is going well, then he can sign an academy contract. That's the second step. And then if he's doing well under an academy contract, then we can sign him on a professional contract.
Nice. So that I think would be, if you're a player, if you're young and you want to think about doing a career in competitive soccer, Miami FC brings kind of this differentiation from other academies, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because the kids have something to look up to, right? Especially as they get to the 17, 18, 19, they have that pathway that they can go. And now, I mean, not to get too off subject, but now, with college level really getting higher and higher with older players that are coming from abroad, players need as much time, domestic players from the US need as much time as possible to continue their development, right? So because we have that first team or under 20s, players are usually taking a gap year where they're not going to college yet. And then, if they don't get an opportunity with the first team, they can still go to college afterwards and play at the college level.
Cool. So before we switch topics, and I want to hear about some stories about Miami FC.
Sure.
And I'm sure there's some fun stories there to hear about. If you had to say, if you have a visualize what is the best thing to happen for Miami FC Academy in the next 5 years, what would you say are the key things that need to happen?
So what would it be, or what needs to happen in order for that to occur?
Either of
Okay,
them.
so I think, the goal for Miami FC Academy and for the club in general is to transfer a player to Europe in the next few years. It's and a high level in Europe as that. Around the league, it's actually starting to happen around the USL within itself. There are players that, are not only in MLS, but now players that are playing top division in Portugal, players that are playing top division in the Netherlands and so forth and so on, in Spain as well. So our goal is to produce a player from the academy that goes on to our first team, gets, meaningful and significant minutes with the first team, does well there, and then eventually we can transfer that player and give him an opportunity to play in Europe, and who knows, maybe after that, U.S. national team.
Super interesting. And do you think from Latin America, some players are starting to look into the U.S. as a potential place where to play?
Yes, I think it looks, a lot of players from South America are starting to look at it as a bridge, right? And there have been certain scenarios, certain cases, like Almada, Argentinian, for example, where he came here from Argentina, then went to Brazil afterwards, and then Lyon, and I believe now he's at Atletico Madrid, if I'm not mistaken, right? So a lot of players are looking at the U.S. as a bridge to Europe sometimes as well, and I think that will continue to happen a little bit more because players will be given a little bit more time to adapt in a level that isn't as necessarily as high as Europe,
So the World Cup is happening next year here in the U.S. Miami is definitely going to be one of the places where things are going to happen. And I'm sure we've got people from all around the world in those 300 players and young individuals that you have in the academy. If Miami FC would have to choose one nationality to pick, you're from Brazil, you've got players from all around the world, which one is it?
To pick to play in the World Cup?
Yes, to cheer for.
That would be a hard one, right? It depends who you ask. Because we definitely have a lot of nationalities, so I think the locker room and the front office will definitely be a little bit split. We have obviously a lot of Argentinians today. We have some Brazilians at the academy level. In the front office, we have American guys, Uruguayans. We have people from all over the world.
There's rivalries there.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
Yes, of course there's rivalry. We haven't got to... but we usually try not to watch the games together. We go separate ways so we don't damage any professional relationships,
smart. That's definitely smart. So there has to be a fun part with a lot of work, but I'm sure there's some fun moments in running this huge organization and running all of these lives of these young players. Do you have a fun story to tell us?
There's been a lot of fun stories. Definitely been a lot of work, but I think the most fun I have in this role is every time an academy player goes to the first team, or an academy player goes to college. It's a sense of fulfillment. So it's definitely gratifying. A lot of work, sometimes a lot of pressure. Need to be able to adapt quickly, but it comes with a lot of rewarding moments as well.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm sure you have a lot of impact in all of these young players, and I love what you guys are doing as Miami FC. I think it's a growing organization, and thank you so much for coming to this podcast.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Por favor.